care about most, and
Mhm.
I can't see them win a World Series. So yeah, you said 20 like 13 through 19 where and 17 even was obviously, but like they got so close every time and then just never just yeah, it was
Yeah,
infuriating.
but
But
then of course they got cheated on by both the Astros and the Red Sox,
and the
or
Red
excuse me,
Sox
the Asterisks.
asterisks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should have. Yeah, I don't want to go to Minute Maid Park as much as I would love to go to the baseball game in every single ballpark in America. The one I'm really hesitant to go to is, of course, Minute Maid, and
Uh-huh.
mostly because I'm just gonna like be taking pictures of their have over in left field and put a giant asterisk next to it. It's like you're cheating.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. That would be the only reason to go. It's like I think that, by the way, we may be becoming best friends right now because I want to go to every park in America. So if you need a buddy to do that, I'm down and I'm comfortable with leaving off Minute Maid because that if I went to every park except Minute Maid, I would say, "Yep, I've been to every park. I've been to every I would still say it." So, um
I would love to go because I have a buddy of mine. I have a few friends actually. We go to Arizona for spring training because all of our favorite teams
cool.
played in the Arizona area.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and even my buddy, one of my good friends, who's a Giants fan, the year we lost to the Astros and the Red Sox, he was like, I mean, he was wearing his World Series stuff, but he wasn't being a dick about it. He was like, he was being like, that sucks, man. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, I know. And he's like trying
That's
to,
nice. Yeah.
he's buying me beers like to drown your sorrows. I'm like,
Yeah, dude, like, look, the Giants won three in a like. If the Dodgers won it, I'd be wearing their gear all the time. I already am wearing their gear all the time. Like, it's fine. You're allowed to do that. So, yeah, man, I hear you.
yeah,
Uh, I'm literally. Oh, okay, cool. You got the email right, John, of the questions.
Yeah, yeah,
It's in the Lack of Genius one. Okay, cool. I just
yep.
opened that. Are you wearing headphones, Ben, by chance?
no, no, I am not.
So you're hearing us straight out of your speaker.
Yeah,
Do,
is
do
that
you?
causing an echo, or I can get some
I'm
headphones
not
in?
hearing anything.
No, I just want to make sure. Yeah, it's not. I just want to make sure that that's not going to mess up the audio when I'm editing.
Okay.
Well, Riverside does have that thing where it tries to cancel out
Yeah,
echo.
that's why it's yeah, it's really yeah, I can't hear any echo. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember when we had your sister on, John, could you hear an
We
echo
didn't
during that?
we didn't use Riverside.
Yeah, so Riverside is canceling it out, you think is what the
I
difference
think so.
is?
Yeah,
Okay,
Because
cool,
when I
cool.
joined the web or the studio, there was an
Oh,
option that said if
yeah,
I was using
that's right.
headphones or I wasn't using headphones.
yep.
And that's why it asked that. Like we
hmm
like they need to know what to cancel out and not cancel out. Gotcha.
And
So
Ben, I know the pain of constantly losing, being a Cubs fan. So
oh yeah. Yeah. You had your huge moment
Hey,
of glory in 2016. So
yep.
2016,
by the way, did you
2016.
know that the Indians, I just learned about the Indians renaming themselves the Guardians. I had no idea. Did you know
Yeah,
about that?
yeah.
I heard
I
about that.
I
Yeah.
I knew it was I mean, I'm not
Same
on
with
social media, so I missed
same
so
with
much.
Washington, the football team.
Did they're the Guardians?
No, they're renaming their team though.
But we don't know what they're naming them yet though, right?
I think it's supposed to come out like next month. I think after
Yeah.
the season's over.
I thought for sure by this season they were supposed to have the name,
Yeah.
and when they didn't, it was like what? But yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
Although I do like the
Um,
nickname that a lot of people have been calling Washington,
what?
the Reskins.
Oh, that's actually funny. That's funny. I hadn't heard. Yeah, it is so weird to hear them referred to as Washington Football Club. It's just
Yeah.
like okay,
I,
like
I mean, I understand why, but you know what?
yeah,
I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's not one of my favorite teams to talk about. So, I mean, once again, I'm an LA guy. The only team that's not from Los Angeles I'm a huge fan of is the Las Vegas Raiders.
oh yeah, oh so you had a fun little run
I did, yeah.
going.
I'm just glad we made it to the playoffs. To be perfectly honest, after what happened this year, good lord.
That's what every Raiders fan I've talked to has said. Like I've led with like, oh, I'm sorry they lost, and they're like, no, I'm glad we made it as far as we did. Like that's unbelievable. I was just happy to be part of the
Yeah.
conversation. You
And
know?
that last game against Cincinnati, I mean, yeah, it's a bummer we lost, but at the same time, it's like we fought to the end.
Yeah.
We were this close. It's like, I mean, I know close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but at the same time, it's like, dude, we had after losing Gruden, losing Madden,
Uh-huh.
one to a tragic death. The other turns out he was a racist jerk,
I
and then what
know.
happened to Ruggs with his DUI and killing someone. I thought it's like, man, our season just is going down the tank, and the fact that we made the playoffs.
Yeah,
and
it's
had a
unbelievable.
win crap that we suffered through. I'm just like, I'm not mad.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah. I totally get it. And in a weird way, like not even in a weird way, but like I think a lot of people who maybe normally hate the Raiders were sort of like empathetic towards their situation. I'm like, oh, it would be cool to see them win, you know?
I don't know. A really good friend of mine, we call each other brother and sister. She is a huge Raider hater, and every time I post something about the Raiders, she goes, the Raiders lost. I'm like, shut up.
Okay, so no empathy from her, no sympathy.
Not from her, anyways, but at
That's
least we
a bummer.
beat Dallas. We beat Dallas during the regular season, so that made me happy.
Yeah, that's great. There you go. I'm gonna get confused here in a second. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna just quickly share on Twitter that we're live streaming. I just realized I didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I got in Facebook and Instagram, so.
I don't get, like I said, if I'm guessing Grayson because he worked it overnight last night, but other than Grayson, I don't know who would be watching us right now, but thank you if you are. Live stream. Are you on Twitter, Ben?
Yeah. I can tweet.
No, you can if you want, but I was just going to tag you in this one.
Oh yeah. It's
there
at BenMagnet27.
27, there you are, yep.
Yeah, and I could retweet it too.
Cool.
Oh yeah, so this was a lot harder than I thought.
Making the quiz?
Yes, making the quiz was a lot harder than I thought. Because at first I was like, I am drunk with power, and then it's like, okay, how hard do I want to go? Do I want to focus? Right. Do I want to focus on like just a big events in retro gaming? Do I want to focus on like specifics? Because I didn't realize how big of a can of worms I opened. Like when Kevin, you and I were talking, it's like because there's so much history just crammed in those 30 to 40 years of retro video games. And at first I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna make it so hard. I'm like, oh actually not hard. And then it's like, and then I'm like thinking of like 20 different questions right off the bat. I'm like, okay, I can only use 5.
Got to narrow this down. And well, the good thing about hearing that is like if we could have you on again, and we could get into specifics or whatever. I was going to say that, but I was gonna say it in a way where it's like kind of like sliding into someone's DMs. It's like I could totally do like 8 more of these quizzes.
Because I was like gonna like go through like books like this game console. Have like this.
Oh, look at that! That's awesome, man.
I got like so many books on over here. I got like hold up. Here's another one. I like showing off. Come on. Yeah, I got like this.
While Kevin and I don't even have books.
That is so cool. Yeah, I don't even know how to read. I'm completely illiterate. I like that one because it looked like a Nintendo cartridge. That was so cool.
Yeah, that's a special edition because there's 2. Because I have this one and the NES and the Super Nintendo version, and I made sure to get the ones that look like Nintendo cartridges. So it's down here. I don't want to take it out because it's very big and bulky. Okay. I have the Legend of Zelda Encyclopedia, and I have the special $80 version, which is the gold cartridge. It looks like it comes in its own Nintendo sleeve.
God, I remember the gold cartridge. That was so cool. Oh my gosh.
I bought that I used to go to a comic store at Northridge, and the second I saw that, I was like, I need this. I really need this. And I looked how much it was. I'm like, I still need it.
That what you're describing is kind of like me with Dodger stuff. Like if I'm broke, but I see it, it's like I can't not get this. Like there's no universe where I don't buy this right now. So yeah, I totally get that obsession, man. That's awesome. We sound like we got the right person, which is great.
Oh yeah. Andy's even been listening to our podcast too, so that's
exactly bonus points. We have jingles. He said he was listening to I'm referring to you as if you're not in the room, John, that he was listening to the Shanty Ska episode. So like you opened I don't want to take words out of his mouth, but like we agreed that we didn't even know shanties was a thing, and so your educational prowess is high.
Well, and Ben, being a fan of retro video games, I assume you're also a fan of the music from the games as well.
Oh, of course. Oh,
one of the groups from the Shanty episode, the Longest Johns, put out an album of all their stuff, and it's chip tunes.
Ooh.
It's so good too. It's super good.
And like the only
Yep.
reason I got into sea shanties was because I saw that I'm not on TikTok, but of course it just made the rounds on the
Right.
internet everywhere.
Oh, the Wellerman.
Yeah, I saw the weather. I saw the Weatherman. I listened to it. I practically memorized the song, and I didn't. And I actually listened at work one day. I listened to the whole album with the
Hmm.
Weatherman on it, by the Longest Johns. I'm like, man, this is actually pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
is.
now I didn't realize I gotta look that up later.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just came out end of last year, I think.
Okay.
So
Man, how amazing that those guys just blew up in one go, just from one
I know.
song.
It was so funny to me because I've been sort of deliberately away from social media for the last year and a half or so.
Mhm.
And when John was describing it to me about this shanty song that blew up on TikTok, I never said this to you, John, but my mind couldn't wrap around like
Right.
TikTok and that doesn't make sense. And then once he sent me the link, I was like, oh, it's just a super catchy melody, and they
Oh, yeah.
remixed the crap out of it, you know?
Actually, it's because I was in choir in high school. I mean, I know your high school was years ago, but still, it was one of the things I love doing. I actually I actually sang a little bit of the Weatherman on Twitter, and I tagged the Longest Johns in it, and they actually liked my tweet. So I'm like,
Awesome! You got a like from him. That's great.
I got a like
Dude.
from them. Yeah.
That's great. Well, maybe we'll have you on as a vocalist also. Oh, I do music. I mean, I'm sure you're a star, but I have to be the star in my own project. But I could throw you on to harmonize on some of my raspy vocals.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I have to warm up my voice first because to be perfectly honest, I did just wake up like 20 minutes ago. So
No, you don't have to do this now. Well, actually, yeah, let's sing now. Ready? Everyone, just sing it. No. I'm gonna preface that my dog always distracts during the episode. Prior to this, so two things prior to this. One, I took him rollerblading, which is his. I put little rollerblades on each of his. No, I'm just. I go rollerblading. He runs alongside me, and it wears him out. But for some reason, when I'm podcasting and I'm sitting in this corner, it doesn't matter how tired he is. He's like right now, he's trying to chew up the cabinet behind me. That's his sort of like his protest of like, hey, pay attention to me.
Oh,
So beforehand, I loaded up all his toys with peanut butter, and so I have these essentially grenades ready to attack, but they're gonna run out. And so just if you see me doing this or like, I apologize. I don't mean to be rude. It's just I'm trying to keep him quiet so that he doesn't disturb the podcast.
no worries.
It happens every single time.
It happens every single time. Yeah. So his name's Coconut,
Huh.
but he's annoying as crap.
No, there are times my cat, she likes to, because it's me, my girlfriend, and a roommate. We live in our house, and there are times my cat, she likes to go into my roommate's room where she's not supposed to go because my roommate's cat is like, dude, what the heck? So there are times where I've been recording, especially when she was a kitten. I have to like, because I'd be in the middle of recording my main show, Fake Nerd podcast, and I would see her go to my roommate's room. I have to be like, have to mute my microphone, rush in, like, Suki, get out of there, and she's like,
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
and I'm like, get out. And she's like, get out. And then sometimes she'll like just like strut, and then sometimes like, Suki, she'll be like, oh crap.
It's so funny too because like we're in this moment of like stop being an animal like you are because it doesn't fit into what we're doing in our life. But it's like it's so hard to remember in those moments. Okay, they're just animal. They're doing what they do. It's just, but yeah.
Right now she's being a little potato on the foot of my bed, so and she's probably taking a nap. So it's like I'm good. I'm safe.
All right,
I
Coconut.
mean, and thankfully
potato
Charlie's
for me.
been a quiet baby for the most part, other than when he's getting changed. So
All right,
hopefully there's
nice. Good.
nothing there. So
Well, if there is, I'll claim that I have a baby sleeping in my. Is there a baby in my living room? What is that? Okay. So Ben, we'll start here in a minute. I'll play the jingle for us just to kind of bring us in. And I'll just we'll kind of take the lead and introduce you and let you talk as much as you want. We do a little intro of you in the episode. We'll do a tidy up jingle. Do you have anything for tidy up, John? I thought I did, but
I don't think so.
tidy up is if you've heard an episode or two, but that's where we tidy.
I'll
things up
apologize to the people for the podcast not being ready yesterday morning like normal.
Oh, okay, got it. And I do have a slight one. If I can't remember it in the moment, just remember it's Mexican pizza. It has to do with Mexican pizza. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then we'll do quick. We'll lead us through all this, and we'll you do podcasts. Like we may be live streaming, but we're definitely going to be editing this, so like we can stop, and I stop all the time to go get my dog something. Like it's fine if we need to do that. Okay, everyone feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm going to hit the jingle then if we're ready.
Hit that jingle.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. John likes tech and lives in Indiana, you know. Kevin likes the Dodgers and talks on the radio. John plays games on Xbox and on his Nintendo, while Kevin runs around LA with his mustachio. It's the Lack of Genius podcast in your ear holes at last. They don't know they're Mars from Venus, that's why it's the Lack of Genius podcast.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, John, you got the hey in first. I always like when I can start an episode by saying we just made Lack of Genius history. And do you know what history we just made, John?
What?
We have a guest who I'll introduce in a moment. It's the first time a guest has lip synced and charaded along to the song. When Kevin had a mustachio, his fingers went up by his lips, and he did the mustachio, and he was singing along like you look like a marionette puppet is what you look like. I got Ben Magnet here. Hi, Ben.
How's it going, guys?
I bring you on a podcast and I compare you to a puppet. How about that? That's how you welcome a guest.
I mean, I have been compared to worse things, so I'll take a puppet. I'll take a puppet.
Very nice, very nice. Ben Magnet is not only the coolest named person you'll meet today. He is a.
Are you trying to say, Kevin, you find him attractive?
He's definitely pulling me in. Yeah. That was John's joke from last week, and he just dropped a second magnet joke. We're gonna see how many magnet jokes he can squeeze in. But Ben is
very polarizing.
He's like a little counter or like a little ding every time.
A little zzz, a little magnet. Ben is a retro video game expert, is what I'm going to refer to you as. I don't know if you're self-proclaimed, but I'm now proclaiming you a retro video game expert, so you can put it on your resume forever. I should have like a one sheet on you. I'll let you sort of take the reins, but I know you have at least a podcast, and you write for several publications, if I'm not mistaken, or I just made that up and just gave you credit you don't deserve.
Oh no,
but
you're right. It's you. By the time of this recording, I don't know when this is going out, but yeah, just last week, that's actually now true, where I now do officially write for like about 3 video game centric publications.
Awesome, man. That's great. What does that entail? What kind of stuff are you writing?
So Old School Gamer Magazine I write for the website, as well as I'm going to get published in a magazine. That my first article hasn't been published yet, but it will be eventually. That's dealing with like old school video games, retro video games. Go Nintendo. The website hasn't launched yet, but that's going to be more Nintendo centric news and features and reviews. And also, I was just recently, this one was out of the blue, I was asked to write for Fusion Gaming Magazine, which is a publication all the way out in England.
Oh, so, hey!
Yeah,
nice!
That was a really fun DM to wake up to that one morning. So, yeah, I now officially write for them. Once again, I haven't been officially published in Old School, in the magazine proper, or in Fusion, because I just joined. But there is an article in the works, like Banjo-Kazooie just came out for the Nintendo Switch Online service. Gamer confession, I've never played Banjo-Kazooie on the original N64 my entire life, because when I was a kid, I wanted to play Pokemon Stadium instead. And
Who didn't
already feel the stares and the comments and some people going to the keyboards going, how dare you never play Banjo? Well, it's gonna happen, chill out.
Yeah, good. You got time. It turns out there's still time to live your life and do these things, such as playing Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, and not just one podcast, 2 podcasts.
2. I thought it might be 2. What are they called again?
So the main one I'm a part of is the Fake Nerd Podcast. I've been doing that show for about 5 years with my friends. That's a basic nerd show where we review films, we talk about TV, comic books, some video game stuff here and there, but the more video game centric podcast is called Basement Arcade Pause Menu, where that's a show where I just essentially we hit pause, sit back, and just chill and talk about video games for about an hour and a half.
Oh, that's such a brilliant concept. You hit pause and you're playing your game and you hit pause and then you talk. Oh my gosh, Ben Magnet, you're brilliant. That's so cool, man. And yeah, I said it in the pre-show, but even just in our conversations before I even heard your resume, I was like, we got the right person for retro
Mhm.
video games for sure.
I appreciate you calling me an expert. I would refer to myself as a amateur video game historian because there are other. I don't know if you go to YouTube. There's the actual video game historian
Mhm.
Norm Caruso, who has made some amazing videos, amazing documentaries about so many things about video games. It's like he's someone I definitely aspire to be, but I just love learning about the history of video games and of course playing the video games, playing the older retro stuff that because I grew up in the '90s. I grew up in one of the
Right.
golden ages of video games, but my exposure and my ability to play some of them was very limited. So now that I'm older and I have air quotes adult money.
Yeah. You don't need to ask
Well,
your parents to buy you a video game console. You can buy it yourself because you're
I
a big boy.
I could, but then of course I want to buy the PS5 and my bank account says no.
Yeah. Yeah, good luck with that. So here's a quick question for you, being a historian, and if this is in the quiz, forgive me, but you alluded to in the pre-show, this sort of 40-year span. Like what
Mhm.
what sort of era are we covering today in our quiz? What do you define retro video game era as?
So this is a great question. So I define retro video games as I prefer to it as like two generations past. That's to me once what like say we're on the PS5 now the PS3 and of course a lot of the internet has officially claimed that the PS3, the Xbox 360, the Nintendo Wii that is now officially retro. Now that once again
Wow.
retro video games, I mean, even though it's not technically what retro means, like if you look up the word retro in the dictionary, it's a
Right.
totally different definition.
Oh,
But like retro is for it's all subjective. It's a very subjective thing. Like even myself, I split up retro into three different ages or four different ages now. The primordial age, which is the Atari and the very early, like the Atari, the Amigas,
mm,
the ColecoVisions, and then you have the first age of retro with the Nintendo Entertainment System going through up to the second age, which is where we get which is where the pixels went to polygons, like the original PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 and stuff like that.
yep.
But for us, we're gonna be talking about stuff from the '80s up to the late '90s.
Okay. That sounds good, which I think is very much in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not, I was never a gamer. But when you grow up in the 90s, like it sounds like we all did, you're right. Video games were everywhere. That whatever name the console, like we all had it, or we all knew about it, or the friend down the street had it, and so I have this sort of peripheral knowledge. If I'm very curious to see how I may totally bomb this quiz, and that's okay if I do, or maybe I'll know something. I don't know. And I know
Yeah.
John, you're much more of a gamer than I am. I don't mean to set you up as like, but like,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know
I am and I'm not.
uh-huh.
So I mean, it just depends. I didn't have a game system at my parents' house until the original Xbox
Okay.
because they were always afraid I would play video games all the time.
Were they
Um,
right?
no, well, and that's the thing. Like I'll go in binges. Like I'll get a new game, I'll play it, and then I'll just stop playing it.
Yeah, got
Most
it.
consoles for a period of time, and then a new game comes out, I want to play it, and so yes and no.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Got it. Well, I'm excited to see. It sounds like we got three sort of
Yeah,
different takes on video games. Let's tidy some things up first, though. Okay.
yeah.
Tidy up before we go any further with the show. Tidy up before we go fix our mistakes tonight. I wanna get it right. Tidy up.
We found out Ben was in choir when he was a youngin in high school. So maybe we'll have to have a remix version of that where he's hitting those high notes instead of me.
Oh no, dude, I was a bass while I was in choir.
No, okay, so you'll do the tidy up.
Yeah, I was like bloody up. I was doing the low notes. I mean, I think the highest I can go was like maybe baritone, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, we just tidied
I'm right
that
there
up
with you,
then.
Ben.
Yeah, I was gonna say, John, and you, we could start a little choir right here, at least a baritone bass choir.
Okay, all right, I was listening to the first episode I listened to yours was a sea shanty, so it's like, There once was a ship that put to sea. Name of the ship was the Billy T. Okay, I'll stop.
We got Ben Magnet to sing. I think that is the first time we've had a guest sing. You're checking off all the lack of genius history boxes for us.
Yeah, I'm just glad I was on the episode about the movie trilogies one. I would have been okay with the Lord of the Rings, but then the second you talked about the Mighty Ducks, my diehard LA Kings fanness kind of rose in a little bit. But,
that's hilarious.
But the fact that, but here's the other thing. I was a Ducks fan as a kid because of the movies. So
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everyone was.
Yeah.
At least all the kids were.
Yeah,
I wanted to become an Anaheim Mighty Ducks fan, but I can't really root for Anaheim sports. It's not my market. I'm an LA guy. I'm in LA, and so I never became a Ducks fan. But I would rock District 5 Mighty Ducks jersey all day long. Like I'm all about the Mighty Ducks, just not so much the professional Ducks.
I rooted for two Anaheim teams when I was a wee youngin, and I lived closer to Anaheim. Funny enough, even though, do you remember the roller hockey league or roller hockey international?
I don't think so. No, that doesn't sound familiar to me.
Okay,
that sounds awesome though.
Yeah, this was a roller hockey league that played in, I want to say, in the off season of the NHL. Once again, this is like this was early to mid 90s, so this was years ago. I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. But my dad would take me to the Great Western Forum to watch the Los Angeles Blades. But me, I didn't. And I only liked teams based on their names, and I realized that there was a team called the Anaheim Bullfrogs that played at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. So I became a diehard Bullfrogs fan, and my poor father was constantly taking me to Blades games. But I'm like, no, I want to root for the Bullfrogs. So he caved, and we started going to Bullfrogs games instead.
He's like, whatever's gonna make the kids shut up.
I would go to a few Anaheim, and then of course the Mighty Ducks, the old cartoon show that was on Disney back in the day, and of course like the movies, and in D2. D2 is also my favorite, where they come out in the NHL jerseys.
I know, that was so epic. Oh, I get chills just thinking about that scene.
Yeah. I know you're supposed to tidy up, and here I am rambling about your past episodes, but also Lord of the Rings, one of the best movie trilogies out there. Fight me.
Yeah, well, you're gonna get me in trouble because John knows if you get me started on Mighty Ducks, I'm not gonna stop. So I'll restrain myself. I know we have, I think, maybe 2 quick tidy ups to get to. John, you had one in mind.
Yeah. Just wanted to apologize to everyone that normally, goes to listen to the podcast at like 8 a.m. Eastern, and it wasn't there yesterday. I'm a little bit sleep deprived this week, mainly because, we had our son this week, so we've got a new logger.
Yeah, congratulations, John.
Congratulations.
And so I accidentally told it to do it at 8 p.m. instead of 8 a.m. But it got fixed, so it went out yesterday, still just not as early as normal. So
we'll let you slide, John. On behalf of all the loggers, we'll let you slide. The episode's up and live, and everything's good to go now. My tidy up had to do with last week. So I mentioned to Ben Mexican pizza. This actually we did talk about the Mexican pizza, and there are rumors that it's coming back, and we want it to come back, and I hope it does. And I'm not even tidying that up. What the reference that I made was, I believe twice. And I do this a lot. I catch myself when I'm editing. I get so caught up in what I'm saying that I get one word in the sentence wrong, and I don't even realize it in the moment. And in this instance, I was referring to Mexican people, and I said Mexican pizza. So I know I did it at least once. And by the way, Ben, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I am half Mexican, so I have a half Mexican card. So it doesn't feel as bad when I accidentally refer to my own people as Mexican pizza. I'm allowed to do that, but I do apologize on behalf of my people.
I mean, as horrible as it sounds, Kevin, if anyone's a Mexican pizza, it's you.
Yeah, I'm the half. I am the Mexican. That is fantastic. I basically am Taco Bell. I'm white and I'm Mexican. That's as good a place as any. Let's get into quiz time. Here we go.
It's time to take a quiz or two. Like a genius podcast doing this for you. You may fail, but it ain't no lie, baby. It's quiz time. Don't really want this quiz to be tough. I just want to pass one because I failed enough. It might sound crazy, but it ain't no lie, baby. It's quiz time.
Yes. Appreciate your enthusiasm, Ben Magnet. Literally the first thing he said when we got on this call was, "Oh, I love the jingles," and he's been singing along to everyone. That makes me feel good. And
they've also been stuck in my head for the past week and a half. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yes, I was gonna say. So I'm sorry. Also, is that I don't try to write catchy songs. This sounds so arrogant. They just sort of happen by accident. I swear.
Right.
I just like it. And I'm like, okay, well, good. If catchy's a good thing. This is, by the way, our remix version sung by our youngest logger, Felix.
They don't know what most of these are made of. There's so long confused tall cat.
Any chance I can get to play that, I will. He's 24 years old, by the way. That's it. No, I'm just... okay, so we got a quiz that Ben Magnet has prepared for games. This quiz is, by the time this airs, is up on lackofgenius.com. So if you want to play along or take it first and see how you do and then listen to the answers, feel free. But Ben, man, unless you have anything to preface us with, into number one.
So essentially, once again, as I said in the pre-show, this was very hard to do because there's so much of video game history and there's like so many different questions. Like I can be super specific, so I tried to go with like major events in retro video games, and then I mean, if you guys want to have me on in the future, I'm just saying, or just putting it out there, we can definitely do this again where I can go either a lot more detailed in with like say a certain character or a certain video game franchise, or even just a certain. There's just once again, there's like subsections of this topic. So there's like so much, and once again, I said I'm an amateur video game historian. I've only barely scratched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this.
There's so much. Yeah, we did discuss wanting to have you on again already. So yeah, that's But okay, so go ahead.
All right, so question number one, and also it's not in chronological order, so we're gonna be jumping back and forth through errors. So just
that
keep
works.
it in your head a little bit.
Okay.
So question number one. What movie studio sued Nintendo over Donkey Kong? Is it A, Walt Disney Studios, B, Universal Studios, or C, Warner Brothers?
Super interesting. John, do you know this off the bat by like, because I'm assuming this, obviously pertains to some kind of event. There's some kind of thing that happened. I don't know it, so I'd have to think through it. Does it ring any bells to you?
I'm guessing C, Warner Brothers, mainly because they own the rights for King Kong.
Oh, interesting. Gosh, John. Wow, man. Now, I should have made my choice first because now I want to choose that based on that. It's early. I'm gonna choose what you just chose because of what you just said, John. So we're both choosing Warner Brothers.
All right. Well, before I give the answer, give me 1 second because my Alexa alarm is going off and I forgot to turn it off in a few minutes.
No, you're fine.
That's fine. Oh, the suspense! The suspense for our live streamers right now. They're like, "What is it?
I know, right?
What is it?" Alexa, have you seen the new South Park movie, the COVID thing? There's an Alexa character. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Yes, I have seen that.
You saw with the Alexa in the car with the oh god, it's too funny. That's what I was thinking as you were talking.
Right. So both of you have said C, Warner Brothers, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Well, you are both wrong.
Oh.
The answer is Universal Studios.
Totally what I was gonna pick.
So, John, you're right. While Warner Brothers does technically have the rights to use King Kong, they only use the word Kong in their films, such as in Kong Skull Island and Godzilla vs. Kong. Universal Studios proper still has the naming rights to King Kong, and way back in 1981, when Donkey Kong was hitting the arcades, Universal sued Nintendo because they thought this was going to get people confused with King Kong.
Right.
And Nintendo hired lawyer Jack Kirby, who never played a video game in his life, and he actually brought in a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet into the courtroom, and Nintendo won the case.
What did he bring in? A Donkey Kong what?
Arcade cabinet. He brought in an actual life-size
the arcade
cabinet to
no way.
To help his argument that Nintendo wasn't in copyright, and people knew the difference between Donkey Kong and King Kong, and
wow.
So, and out of that, two other great fun facts came out of this lawsuit. So, excuse me. The first one being that Nintendo was so grateful to John Kirby.
Oh, I want to guess.
That the little pink puffball.
It was after him.
Named after him.
That I was gonna say that as a joke. That is so cool.
Nope, that's 100% real. He confirmed it in the documentary High Score on Netflix, and yeah, Kirby was named after Laura John Kirby, who sadly passed away in 2019.
Oh,
And not only that, even so, of course, Nintendo has sued a lot of people, and they've gotten sued a few times. But with Universal suing Nintendo, now they have a partnership because Super Nintendo World is now being a part of Universal theme parks all around the world. Japan opened, so Nintendo got sued by Universal, and not only are they making lands in their theme parks, but also their Illumination Animation Studios, which is of course owned by Universal, is making the Super Mario Bros. Movie starring Chris Pratt, Charlie Day.
no way. Are they gonna be Mario and Luigi?
What's up?
They're gonna be Mario and Luigi then.
Chris Pratt is Mario, Charlie Day is Luigi,
Oh, that's
Anya
such.
Taylor-Joy is gonna be Peach, and Jack Black is playing Bowser.
Oh my gosh, I had not heard. That is such good casting. Oh my goodness.
Well,
I hope they make Bowser look like Jack Black, though.
Well, it's all voice acting, so yeah.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah, well, I am anxiously waiting for because the one in Japan opened up, of course, because that was
Yeah, the
gonna be
Super Super
the
Nintendo World. You said, right?
Yeah, Super Nintendo World opened up
So
in
cool.
Japan, and I've been watching constant YouTube videos about it, and the FOMO is real. But
Yeah.
the good news is that for us living here in California, our Super Nintendo land or world, I keep forgetting what it's called,
Uh-huh.
get opened up first, and then Orlando is gonna get theirs. So the one time
suck at
where we
Orlando.
get something first before Orlando is Nintendo, and that makes me stupid happy, and I'm just like, hurry up.
Yes, that is super rare. Yeah, Orlando always seems to get everything, whether it's Disney World or Universal Studios. And I gotta say, like, because I mean, no knock on Harry Potter, but like, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so when Harry Potter World opened, it wasn't a big deal to me. The Simpsons stuff at Universal Studios is cool, but Super Nintendo World and/or Land, like that sounds and it's gonna be huge because the people who grew up on Super Nintendo, us, are now the adult big boys who have money, and big boys and girls, I'm sorry, that have money and are like, that's gonna be a hit. That's gonna be a hit. That's awesome.
It's and I know for a fact here in California it's being built on the lower lot because Universal Studios in Los Angeles or Hollywood is split. You have the upper lot and the lower lot. So
Yeah.
the upper lot
Yeah.
has the tram tour and a few of the rides, the Simpsons ride, even though I'm still getting rid of Back to the Future, but okay.
I know.
And downstairs you have Transformers, The Mummy, and Jurassic World. So
Yes.
it's going to be nestled between Jurassic World and Transformers. It's going to be behind that gift shop in the Panda Express.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can see that. There's probably a bunch
So
of.
when you're going down the escalator, you can see them building it, and they have the board that say Super Nintendo World or Super Nintendo Land opening soon. And the rumor was that's going to be finished construction this year, although Universal has yet to officially say that. That's when it's going to be open.
Gotcha. Well, I'm officially giddy, so thank you for that.
I've been giddy for so long.
Yeah, you're just
I'm
you're
just
getting rid of some of your giddiness and passing it on to someone else so you can manage your life.
Yeah, just waiting to just watching the stuff from the videos from Japan. Just the FOMO is real.
Yeah.
Makes me bummed that I understand Japan has the borders closed because they're trying to save the COVID. Completely understand that, but at the same time, it's like I just want to go to Osaka. I just want to go to Universal Japan. I don't care if I don't speak Japanese. I just want to go.
We'll start a Stenbeg magnet to Osaka to Super Nintendo World Fun for you and see what happens.
Appreciate that.
Maybe we can use that those press passes that you might be getting with your publications.
There you go. I need to check this out firsthand. I think I'm going to need a press pass. Way to get us rolling. We both missed that. We're 0 for 1.
Yeah.
And unless you had anything else, are you ready for number 2?
No, but I'm ready for number 2. Now, this one's probably going to be an easy one. So, what company is best known for the following cheat code? Up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, start.
Don't say it if you do, because I don't think I know it. Oh, sorry. what are
I
our
know
choices?
it, but yeah.
I'm totally cutting you off. Sorry, Ben.
So, the choices are Sega, Capcom, or Konami.
So you do know it, John?
Yeah, and I think he's actually missing something in the code.
Up,
Doesn't it
down,
go
left,
BA
right,
select
start.
start?
Nope.
I thought it was
it's up,
select
down,
start.
down. Nope, it's not no
No?
select. It's only up, down, left, right, BA, start.
Okay.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
still
So
think I know the answer.
you know it. I actually don't think I know it. I'm pretty positive I don't know it. Sega, Capcom,
Or Konami.
Konami. Yeah, I'm gonna choose first because then I won't cheat and choose the answer that I think that John. For some reason, to me, Konami is jumping out, so I'm gonna choose that.
All right, Kevin has Konami. What do you have, John?
That's what I was going to go with too.
Well, you are both right.
Woo, go
It is the
us!
famous Konami code. Up, up, down, down, left, right, is one of the most famous video game cheat codes of all time. It was mostly it became famous with the game Contra because it was also known as the Contra code because if you enter that code at the start screen at Contra, not Super Contra, just regular Contra, you got 30 lives, which as some people might know, Contra is an extremely difficult game. It is one of the hardest action platformers around, and it is stupid hard. But of course, you enter that code, you get 30 lives. If you also enter that code into other Konami games, you get, like in Gradius, you get extra weapons, you get a few upgrades here and there. It was originally created by I'm totally gonna butcher this name. I'm sorry. Kazuhisa Hashimoto, who unfortunately passed away, and he was developing a home port of the 1985 arcade game Gradius, and he found it a little too hard, so he created the code, and then all of a sudden, it just became a famous cheat code, which has not only been referenced in Konami games, but also in pop culture as a whole. I don't know if you guys saw the Disney film Wreck-It Ralph, but when Candy is going to a secret vault, he enters the code in an NES controller, and it opens the door.
That's super cool.
Yes, it's the most famous cheat code in video game history. So, I mean, there are, of course, not to say that there are other cheat codes, but it's a simple code. You put it into, you're playing Konami or even Super Contra, something's gonna happen.
That's so cool. Now, you may not know the answer to this. Maybe you do. How did the public figure this out? Like, was this released by Konami? Was it just rumors over time? Did some kid somewhere just accidentally put this code in and discover that it worked? Do you have any idea how that came about?
I just closed the wiki page because I pulled it up for Hashimoto's name to make sure I said it right and flying around my face. But actually, I never knew. I don't know exactly how it was released. I mean, it could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been through Nintendo Power. It could have been like Konami themselves. Because originally it was a cheat code to help developers figure out, like, okay, let's go through, fix the bugs so they don't have to keep restarting the game over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot as something that you may not know, because that sort of seems like the kind of thing that I bet you there is no solid answer for how it first got out. Maybe there is. Maybe it's like, yeah, they started releasing it with the video games, but I bet it's one of those things where it's just like it's almost like legendary. Like, who knows? It just got out and then it exploded.
It probably is. Because, of course,
Yeah.
Contra wasn't the first game to use the Konami code, but at the same time, it's most famous with Contra.
Got it. Yeah. That's great, man. That's a great question. So we both got it right, which is good for us. So
Yep.
we're both, and we're moving right along.
All right, now we're getting to something that's a little more obscure, so I hope you guys are ready.
Got our obscure hats on.
Where was Tom Kalinske, who eventually becomes the CEO of Sega of America in the early 90s, where was he when Hayao Nakayama, who was the CEO of Sega of Japan, approached him to become CEO of Sega of America? Was Tom at a family dinner in Seattle? Was he on vacation in Hawaii? Or was he at a 49ers versus the Raiders football game?
I love this question, my friend. This is the obscure weirdness I like, because for me, there's no way I can know this. I mean, I'm sure if I knew a little history about these people, like if I knew that Tom Kalinske was from the Bay Area and was watching maybe at the time it was probably San Francisco versus Oakland Raider game, then I don't know. I that would be the logic I'd use, but I don't know anything about him. So, what jumps out to you, John?
I'm trying to remember where Sega is located in the U.S., whether it's in the Seattle area or Bay Area.
Yeah, gotcha. Because if he's on vacation in Seattle and Hayao Nakayama is already there, then it's like, that's
Or yeah.
It's so fun watching you guys trying to deliberate this.
I know. And, it's funny because right now I'll admit that I'm leaning towards the 49ers Raiders game, and maybe it's just because I'm a sports fan. But I also will say, with a little bit of inside knowledge from our pre show, that I found out that Ben Magnet, you're a Raiders fan. So maybe you just threw that question in as a way to get your Raiders in this quiz. Yeah, it's super. Yeah, and then none of us have mentioned On Vacation in Hawaii, which would be maybe is the dark horse right now. I don't know. Do you know what you're going to choose, John?
I before you even said it, I was thinking of just going with the vacation in Hawaii. So I think I'm just gonna stick with that.
Okay. Well, I'm between A or C. I'm between the family dinner in Seattle and the Niners Raiders game, and I feel like I mean, look, it could be Hawaii, and none of this will matter, but. If it is between these two, I feel like this is the moment that I hate because I just used the logic of why it wouldn't be the Niners Raiders game, and so if I choose it, I'll feel like an idiot. But if I don't choose it and it is it, I'm gonna say family dinner in Seattle. That's what I'm choosing. I'm locking it in.
Oh man, I am so drunk with power right now. So, one of you got it right. Unfortunately, the other got it wrong. Ooh. The one who got it right is John.
Hey.
Let me play this for me. So it was not the family dinner or the Niners Raider game. It was Hawaii.
It was Hawaii. So it's a story that is hilarious. So yes, Tom Kalinske, who was formerly one of the head he was head of marketing over at Mattel. He was one of the reasons why Barbie gained a big resurgence in the 80s. He was on vacation. He left Mattel. He was working for Matchbox at the time, but he was thinking about leaving that company as well. He was on vacation in Hawaii with his wife and 2 daughters when out of nowhere, Hayao Nakayama finds him. He goes all the way from Japan to Hawaii to specifically find Tom Kalinske and convince him to travel with him back to Japan to go to look at what would eventually become the Sega Genesis here in America, the Sega Mega Drive in the rest of the world. Wow. Now, Tom was literally on the beach chilling with his family. And here comes Mr. Nakayama-san asking Tom to come with them. And he's just looking at it, and his daughters were the ones who convinced him, saying, "Daddy, this man came all the way from Japan to see you." And there's a line in the book, Console War by Blake J. Harris, where his wife kind of makes a little remark saying, "You hate Hawaii anyway." So,
you don't want to be here.
Mr. Kalinske agrees. He hops on a plane, goes to Japan, falls in love with the Sega Genesis, and becomes CEO and president of Sega of America, and is one of the key figures in starting the console war between Sega and Nintendo in the 90s. I mean, already Sega was trying to throw pot shots at Nintendo with their famous "Genesis does what Nintendo don't" advertisement.
Oh, I don't remember that. That's great. That's super clever.
Yeah, but that wasn't him. So he later goes on to his whole thing was like he made Sonic the Hedgehog the pack-in title for the Sega Genesis, because at the time,
which, by the way, you're rocking a Sonic the Hedgehog shirt today. I noticed. Yeah.
I mean, he's my favorite.
That's awesome.
Hedgehog's my favorite. This is the first game I ever played with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and it was just all downhill from there. So yeah, it was Tom Kalinske and the team at Sega of America who essentially created this giant beast and something that was able to go toe to toe with Nintendo. Now, of course, their downfall, sadly, wasn't Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo fought hard because they had the Super Nintendo, came out in 1991 here in America, Super Mario World, some amazing titles like Super Metroid, and eventually Star Fox. But Sega's problem, and this problem continued even long after Tom left. Sorry, I'm going to professor mode here.
I love it.
Was that they were trying to innovate too quickly. Like I don't know, John, you might remember, or Kevin, you might remember as well, the Sega CD, the Sega 32X, and then when the Sega Saturn dropped in North America the same day it was announced, and then they said, "Oh yeah, we also have the 32X." There was just constant add-ons, constant things of trying to up the Sega hardware to make it more powerful than it was, whereas Nintendo was just focusing on software. And at that time, Donkey Kong was coming out. They were doing so many amazing things with cartridges with no peripherals at all, and then just eventually Nintendo won out in the end, and Sega started declining with their consoles, and then Sony entered the picture, and that's like a completely different story right there. How Sony came in and got into video games. It is that period of video game history is my favorite era to study. Absolutely nuts.
It's like a. I mean, everybody's trying to be the best. Everyone
Oh, yeah.
and you just mentioned Sega end up essentially shooting themselves in the foot by trying to do too much.
Well, also Sega of America and Sega of Japan were constantly fighting against each other because here in America, Sega was doing so much better than Sega of Japan, and Sega of Japan was mad because they were the ones who were like, "Hey, we're making these great games, we're doing all these good things, but how come America is taking all the credit?" So it was also like a little Sega civil war. Whereas for Nintendo, they were harmonious. They worked harmoniously with each other. They knew what was going on. They worked super well together. Whereas Sega of Japan got jealous at Sega's popularity here in America, which is really funny because at the time, if you look at the world, popular systems, whereas Japan and Asia was the Super Nintendo. That was the most popular system there.
Mhm.
America or North America it could either or. It could be either Sega and Nintendo, depending on who you ask. But over in Europe and Australia, Sega was king. So it's like the world was divided into 3 spots, and I believe in South America, the Sega was still the king because the Sega Master System didn't die. I don't think it's still dead in Brazil. It's still a huge thing in Brazil. The Sega's 8-bit system won't die.
Wow, is that true? That's right in Brazil.
That's true.
That's so interesting.
It's a huge system down in Brazil for some reason.
Wow. Well, that's super fascinating because I remember the 90s very clearly. I have an older he's only a year older than me. We're very close in age, and like I had a Game Boy, he had a Sega. What was the little console called again?
Sega Game Gear.
Yeah, Sega Game Gear. Yes. I remember it clearly. And it's so interesting because I don't know how far apart those came out, but like, Game Boy is just the green and the screen is very basic.
The monochrome.
And then you look at the Sega Dream Game Gear, and it's like, whoa, this is like a video game in my hand. This is crazy. It's that battle was epic. They definitely both seem like huge juggernauts.
Well, and the Dreamcast seemed really, like kind of before its time, and it just faded away because Sega in general just faded away.
Well, the Dreamcast, unfortunately, I mean, yes, the Dreamcast was an amazing system, and it has a lot of love today. But the problem with the Dreamcast was that Sega was trying to innovate too soon, and I forgot the name of the president of Sega at the time because when the Dreamcast came out, I want to say Nakayama left, and a new CEO, president of Sega Japan, came in. Tom Kalinske left right after the Saturn dropped, so he was long gone. But he thought, hey, let's put in an internet modem in the Dreamcast so people can play online. Whereas he saw in the future, which would eventually become a feature that was, I mean, can you imagine trying to play online games without the Sega Dreamcast, without them essentially trying to do it first? It's nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were thinking ahead on like, hey, they were trying to solve a problem that didn't come up yet. Whereas when Sony announced that, hey, the PlayStation 2 is also a much cheaper DVD player, America, essentially the world, went to PlayStation because it's like, hey, do I want to spend $500 on a standard DVD player, or do I want to spend $200 or $300 on a DVD player that can also play really good video games and can also play my entire PlayStation library?
Wow.
Because the Dreamcast wasn't backwards compatible with the Saturn.
Yeah.
God, what a world we lived in and live in.
And then you've got Microsoft that tried to buy Nintendo.
Tried. Then Sega was also trying to do some stuff with Microsoft as well. Like even when the Dreamcast was out, Sega was trying like, yo, you want to put maybe some Dreamcast games on the Xbox? We can like help each other out here, buddy. And then it just became, and then Sega just like stopped making consoles and just stuck with making software.
Well, I'm getting schooled right now, which is fantastic. And ironically, I'm also losing in the quiz, which is, John, you just took the lead on me, right?
I did.
You're 2 for 3. I'm 1 for 3. Which I gotta say, I'm very impressed with both of us. we're representing decently, but yeah, shall we move on and see what question 4 brings us?
I think so.
Question number 4. Now this is going way back in the beginning, so be ready, gentlemen. What was the first ever video game console to use cartridges?
Wow. Was
it the Fairchild Channel F, the Intellivision, or the Magnavox Odyssey 2? And if any one of you was thinking Atari, the answer is not Atari.
Yeah, well, I can't say I was thinking Atari, but what I do notice is that I have not heard of any of these 3 choices. Have you, John? I'm guessing you've heard of something.
I've heard of the last two. I know
Uh-huh.
of Fairchild, the company. I couldn't have told
Okay,
you that they
got
made
it.
a system. I know
Yeah.
Fairchild is kind of the first company out in the Silicon Valley, before it was Silicon Valley, that started making transistors. And then people from Fairchild left and created Intel. Um,
Wow. Hey, is that? I think. Yeah. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
but I couldn't have told you that they made a game console. But it's not surprising. Like everyone was making game consoles at that time, just because it was the brand new thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
this question alone, without even getting the answer, has already blown my mind because I didn't even know there were other consoles before Atari, essentially, and I guess I should have, but Atari was obviously, I'm guessing, the most commercially successful.
Oh, look,
yeah.
Um,
we'll get there
to
eventually. Don't worry.
yeah, which is makes sense to why that would be on my radar. And none of these other ones would. So for me, it's totally going to be a guess. Do you have any logic that you're trying to use, John? To
Well, I mean, I know Magnavox was a TV company. Um, they made TVs, and the name I think is still around, but it's
Mhm.
probably just a brand that another company owns. Um, the fact that he put Fairchild on here makes me
Mhm.
want to just go ahead and choose Fairchild, just because it's obscure enough that maybe that's the one. So
Yeah, and this is tough for me because I'm guessing it's kind of strategy for me at this point, being one behind you. It's like, okay, do I choose the same one to try to keep pace, or do I choose something different to try? So I'm gonna go the second route. I'm gonna choose Magnavox. I'm gonna choose the Magnavox Odyssey 2.
So, John, you're picking the Fairchild, and
Yep.
Kevin's the Magnavox.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, once again, one of you got it right, and the other got it wrong.
Come on, Kevin. Come on, Kevin.
Sorry, Kevin, it's John. John got it
Oh,
right.
that's for me. That's for John. It's not looking good for our hero.
So,
Nice, John.
yeah, so the Fairchild Channel F, which came out according to the game console by Evan Amos, came out in 1976, and it was truly the very first console to use video game cartridges. And video game cartridges were created by a gentleman by the name of Jerry Lawson. He was he was essentially the father of video game cartridges. He worked at Fairchild. He was tinkering in his garage. And also, it should be noted that he is an African American gentleman. So essentially, one of the most iconic pieces of video game, or essentially the thing that made video games up until like the late '90s, came from an African American. And unfortunately, his story wasn't told until much later. So
Wow.
he
Wow.
wasn't celebrated. And of course, so the Fairchild 26 games, and it was a commercial failure because the company Fairchild didn't understand how the video game market worked, unlike Atari or even Magnavox. So, of course, the cartridge idea wasn't patented. It wasn't like they're stealing our idea, because it's kind of like, oh, that makes sense. And as long as you make cartridges to work with your machine, you're not stealing anything, essentially. Now, it could be that's my understanding of how Atari was able to use their cartridges, because the second the Fairchild came out, Atari saw that, go, hey, that's a good idea, and then they started using cartridges with the Atari 2600, which of course became one of the most well-known video game consoles of all time.
yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
technically, as long as they didn't look at the internals to the cartridge, they can't claim anything. So
Yeah, so, and of course, if you were to look at a Fairchild Channel F cartridge and a 2600 cartridge, they're vastly different. So it's like, okay, yeah, obviously, they just took the main basis of an idea and made it their own. But of course, other
Uh-huh.
companies would do the same, like Intellivision, ColecoVision, other consoles in the early 80s would also make their own style cartridges, which probably made a lot of grandmothers confused, because for a time there wasn't really any main indication on the box of what the game was for. So you can get and eventually a television and ColecoVision actually made adapters for their systems, so you can play Atari 2600 games on them.
Oh,
And
that's
Atari was
funny.
pissed. They were not happy about that. But Jerry Lawson's story mostly has been coming to light in recent years. His family, he unfortunately passed away some time ago. His family was featured on the first episode of High Score, because they talked about the Fairchild, and even his son said not a lot of people know about the Fairchild because it is a console from an era that Atari dominated.
yeah,
Mm,
Like, some people will probably mention, oh, hey, I remember the Intellivision, or oh man, I was a huge ColecoVision fan. I never played the ColecoVision, which was created by Tech. the company that made calculators,
Mhm.
until
Mhm.
I went to a retro video game convention in 2019. And I've heard of the ColecoVision, but here I am playing a ColecoVision. I'm playing the silly Cabbage Patch Kids game,
Oh, that sounds
and
awesome.
and I'm just like, so this is what ColecoVision was like. And of course, you have Intellivision, which I want to say was owned by Mattel. Mattel created it. Was Mattel or Hasbro, one of the two. And then, of course, they decided to get out of the video game market in the late 80s after the crash of '83.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, the interesting thing, and I don't mean to like pick something totally random that you said, but several times throughout this episode, you've mentioned that somebody has just passed away, and it's so interesting to me. That makes sense because this retro heyday of the 80s, 90s, and these are probably
Mhm.
40 something year old, 30, 40 something year olds at that time. And now 40 years have passed. And it's just like, it's sort of like the godfathers and I don't know about godmothers, whatever you want to call, the founders of
Yeah.
these Mount Rushmore people of video games are, it's very fascinating. And
Well,
it's a great, it's a great way to honor their lives and people are, entertained as a result of their work,
Yeah, I'm just glad
Well-
that now, at least with Jerry Lawson, he's getting the recognition he deserves. Because where would
Yeah.
Nintendo be without game cartridges? Where would Sega be
Right.
without game cartridges? And Atari,
Yeah.
wouldn't be anywhere without game cartridges because all the systems, like John, you were talking about the Magnavox Odyssey,
Mhm.
because the Magnavox Aussie was essentially the first at-home video game console, but it only had games built into the system, and to change and to play the different games, like if you were to buy a Magnavox Aussie in like 1975 or 76, whenever it came out, you would have not only just get the system, but you also get these screen filaments, or these things that you would put on your television screen to properly play the game, and a bunch of
Oh.
other things to properly play games.
Wow.
Like you put a hockey thing and you play hockey, which was essentially Pong. You put another thing over, it's like, oh, it's a tennis court. It's just Pong. You get a thing, oh, this is roulette. It's just a dot going around in a circle.
That is very innovative though, but it is, I see, to your point, it's like all these, this is why a cartridge needed to be invented so it could all be encapsulated in this one thing.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, John?
Well, I was just going to say a couple things. One, it's not exactly, related to video games, but to that industry as a whole. The AMC show *Halt and Catch Fire* is really good.
I'm not
if you
even
haven't
familiar
watched
with
it,
it. Is it a documentary? Is it a drama?
It's a drama. It has Lee Pace in it and some other people that you might know. The first season of it kind of centers around Compaq and how Compaq formed and creating the DOS, not open source, but like the other version of DOS computers and everything like that. And which is, it's not Compaq in the show, but it's basically the history of the beginning of Compaq. And then I think part of why a lot of those people might be starting to die is they dealt with lead all the time.
Oh, wow.
Building the cartridges and stuff. They were constantly handling lead. And so there's actually been a lot of people have lead poisoning and stuff and brain issues because.
That's an interesting point. Like, not just the fact that age is now a factor, but yeah, wow. That's fascinating. I'd be curious. I'd be curious if there was truth to that, but you're probably right. Well, in terms of our episode here, John, we have one more question, I believe. John has already won because you're 3 for 4, which is actually
I am.
very impressive, and I'm 1 for 4, so there's no way I can win, which is fine, but I'm still going to be very ultra competitive on this question and hopefully take you down and get my own little victory.
Well, I
But,
mean, you got a
what
50-50 chance, it looks like.
Yeah,
all right, let's do it. Oh, we got a true or false, right?
Yeah, the last one is a true or false question. So, once again, going back to the very early 80s here.
Uh-huh.
True or false, gentlemen? E.T. the video game is the sole reason the American video game market crashed in 1983.
I don't know if it's the sole reason, but I know that that game in general got buried in a dump in Nevada somewhere, supposedly.
There's a documentary on it. I don't mean
Yeah.
we're probably going to get into this, Ben, but I remember watching that, and they went searching for them, and I don't want to ruin the ending because I don't even remember it, but maybe Ben will talk more about that. Yeah, I remember that is what I think of when I think of ET the video game.
Right.
It was such an epic failure, and it's so funny looking at the little graphics of the ET guy, and I forget why it was a failure. If I recall, it was like a really hard game to play. On top of like the adventure wasn't very fun, and just
Right.
colossal failure.
Watch, he's gonna pull out a copy of it or something.
His framed copy that says "best
Yeah.
video game ever."
You're not wrong.
There it is. Oh my God, Elliot and ET are on there. He went to the dumpster. He went to the dump and found it.
Dude, I got a few Atari 2600 cartridges. I just bought for preservation purposes. But anyways,
That's great.
yeah. So yeah, the statement is true or false. E.T. This game is the sole reason that the American video game industry crashed in 1983. True or false, gentlemen?
I'm gonna go with true.
Yeah, it's hard for me because this is where I read too much into questions, and I see sole reason, and I'm like, well, there had to be other factors. Was it the main contributor? Probably, but is it the sole reason? Just to try to gain ground on you. You said what did you say, John?
I said true.
True, I thought so. So I'm going to choose false. I'm going to say no, and that with my logic that goes with my answer. So I'm going to say false. One of us will be right. One of us will be wrong.
Well, you're actually right. Yeah, one of you is right and one of you is wrong. But this time it's the reverse. Kevin is right and John
Hey.
is wrong.
I'm just gonna keep playing these for me because I need to feel good about myself here. All right, and there's one for you, John.
Okay, so E.T. the video game. Yes, it is a controversial game. Yes, it is. A lot of people on the internet like to give it flack, but no, it is not the sole reason the market crashed in 1983. Now, of course, fun fact, I actually got to talk to the man who created the video game, Howard Scott Warshaw, on my podcast. He also recently wrote a book about how he made history by destroying an industry, but
That's
it
awesome.
wasn't solely his fault. The man was asked to make a game in 5 weeks. And yes,
That's
even
right.
in primordial game standards, his previous game, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I actually have right here.
Nice. That's so cool. By the way, Ben, for those who aren't on the stream, there's posters behind Ben that are video game related. He showed us a series of books beforehand, and he's got the gold cartridge box set or whatever of Zelda. So the dude is legit. Just to verify.
I have the Zelda Encyclopedia. That's the gold cartridge. I even have a Hallmark ornament for Super Nintendo that plays the Super Nintendo Super Mario theme. But anyways, back to E.T.
Yes.
So it wasn't the sole reason, because back then, in what I call the primordial age of video games, Atari was on a high. Were just raking in the money, and by this time, Atari was owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers executives all they cared about was the bottom line. So even though Howard Scott Warshaw, in a Herculean effort, made E.T. in 5 weeks to make a Christmas release, he was able to make the game that he was able to make, and it wasn't. I don't think Atari is the worst game. I would say Pac-Man is the 2600 port of Pac-Man is the worst one, because at the time when kids were when they heard that Pac-Man, one of the most famous arcade games, or arguably the most famous arcade game in history, was coming to the home console, they were expecting the arcade experience at home, which of course is not the case.
Wow.
And it wasn't so. It was a slew of other companies besides Atari were just constantly cranking out video games, not caring about what the quality was. There was too many consoles. There were too many crappy games. Parents were constantly trying to get refunds. Stores didn't want to take any new product. So Atari did put E.T. in a landfill in New Mexico, but it wasn't just E.T. It was a bunch of unsold video game cartridges that had nowhere to go. So instead of taking the games or taking the cartridges, recycling them, they decided to say, F it, dump it. So yes, there were some ET cartridges in the Alamogordo Desert in New Mexico where the landfill was, and there was a documentary about that. But of course, people knew it eventually just became this urban legend.
Right.
And ET itself became a bit of a legend about how, if you were to Google ET the video game or YouTube ET the video game, you would get so many YouTubers, so many people crying about how horrible the game is. You get all these people with all this vitriol about the game. But when you actually look at what happened and read into what was going on, it wasn't just E.T. it was so many other, it was ColecoVision and Television, all these other, it was Atari themselves. The entire industry caved in on itself because executives got too greedy and were just like, put out money, just put it out. It wasn't until 1985 when Nintendo came over with the NES that people started to look at video games a different way. Of course, Nintendo had super strict rules on what would. I mean, yes, the NES does have bad games. That's going to happen. But they also had strict rules to try and make sure there wasn't going to be a crash here in America. Now, also, quick side note, the reason why I say America is that America was the only one that experienced this video game crash. The rest of the world, Europe, Australia, Japan, no problems.
Wow.
They were going hard on home consoles after 1983. Like, even when Nintendo came out with the Nintendo Entertainment System or the Famicom in Japan, the rest of the world was doing fine with video games. There was no problem whatsoever with it. Oh, it was only America. America was the only problem child.
That sounds about right. Do you think part of it, you mentioned it kind of with Pac-Man, there was this high expectation. Do you think because the name E.T. and the movie E.T., it was like, well, this is going to be amazing because it's such a huge blockbuster. So that was part of why it became the poster child for bad video games. Super interesting. And, look, we've how much, the reason we take history class in high school, we learn about history, so we learn from our mistakes. And so in the grand scheme of history of retro video games, lesson of let's not get greedy as execs, let's not try to make a game reach market. We got to plan way ahead of time and not force someone to spend 5 weeks to make a crappy game.
Oh, but here's the thing: you're still getting that. It may not be on the
really?
5-week time. Yeah, I mean,
turns out
I'm
executives
really
are still greedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Activision Blizzard. I mean, they've had huge issues over the last few years. So much so in that a lot of people want the CEO to resign, which sounds like will happen next year once Microsoft takes control of them. But, growing up, being a video game programmer was something I wanted to do. And so, I went and got a computer science degree. And, I loved playing World of Warcraft. And I wanted to work at Blizzard. And then I read about how it's not exactly the best thing to do as a career. You constantly, you get paid a really good salary, but the amount of work you do, it's not a fair compensation. And it's, 80, 100-hour weeks right before launch, and it's just not worth it.
Wow.
It's also, because what John, you're describing is what's referred to as crunch time.
Oh, yeah.
It's constant overtime. It's constant people essentially living at their offices. The same thing happened with CG Project Red in their launch of Cyberpunk 2077. Because for the longest time, when they announced the game, they're like, "Yeah, it'll be ready when it's ready." But then shareholders got involved. They were constantly saying, "We're not going to do crunch," but they eventually broke that promise and forced people to do crunch. And you were saying with Activision Blizzard, yeah, they would do crunch, but also another huge problem that's been plaguing them is, of course, the sexual harassment claims that have been coming out of Blizzard and Activision.
And I think I saw something this morning that I think it's Activision. The programmers there are actually starting to form a union, so they would be the first union at a AAA studio.
Yeah.
So I support them in that effort.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So.
Because like the video game, as much as I love this industry, and I still love it with all my heart and soul, there are massive glaring problems with it that need to be addressed and they need to be fixed.
Both on the programming side as well as the fan side. I mean, it's
exactly. I mean, open up video game Twitter and just like say something, and just like if you're someone with a bunch of followers, someone's gonna come and attack you for some stupid reason. It's insane.
Well, I mean, we had Gamergate, 5-10 years ago now, which should never have happened.
No, shouldn't have. But
what is that? Is there a sort of
that
brief way to summarize that?
There was, if memory serves, there was a couple female journalists, gamer journalists, that started getting attacked by the male fan base, and basically said, "You shouldn't be doing this. You're a girl."
Whoa!
Like doxing and threats and stuff like that.
Yeah, essentially,
wow.
A bunch of people saying that.
And I think one of the people that was heavily involved with that, actually she was a programmer, Brianna Wu. I think she's actually now a representative for her district in Massachusetts.
No.
And she's been trying to do a lot of work on making things like that better. So
Yeah, well, I mean,
Dude, that's great. I mean, yeah, obviously. So there's. It's funny because it sounds like within the video game world, turns out people haven't learned from history.
No.
And look, I mean, without getting into a political conversation, our nation and the world in general have not taken the light. But I love that you're talking about a woman who took this bad experience and is trying to make positive change out of it, and that's always a nice positive point to make.
also, fun fact: are you guys familiar with the highly popular video game Centipede,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
programmed by a woman?
Yeah.
One of
That's
the most
awesome.
One of the most famous video games in all of history was programmed by a woman.
That's amazing.
And here's a fact you might not know, Kevin and Ben. I don't know if you know this. Really, up until like the 70s, most programmers for computers were women.
Really? Why
Yeah.
is that?
Women did the programming, and the men were doing the hardware stuff. That's just kind of how it broke down with the engineering and everything. You know, I think it stems kind of from the World Wars. You know, this is where my knowledge comes in, I guess. You know, the very first computer ever was made by a guy named Charles Babbage, and this was in the 1800s, and it used steam and everything, and it could do calculations. And in fact, the first programmer for that machine, the person that made it work, was a woman by the name of Ada Lovelace. And so, you know, it kind of just carried into that. Like, one of the big programming languages, COBOL, was developed by a female Navy admiral named Grace Hopper, which I think MIT just renamed one of their buildings. They took off some old racist white guy's name and put her name on the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, she was also the first woman that was an Admiral Navy, or a Navy admiral. And so, yeah, I mean, women have been a big part of the industry up until, you know, the 70s, 80s, and then it just kind of became a guys only club, and it's slowly starting to go back to where it might be more of an equal thing, but it's not close yet. So,
John, did you just drop all that on us from inside your brain?
it's possible.
When there's knowledge that you drop, what do we call that?
I don't know. What do you call it, Kevin?
I'll tell you what we call it.
John Knowledge Bomb.
That's the first time I've gotten to play that.
That's true.
You just dropped a John Knowledge Bomb on us, my friend. Impressive. I was watching you the whole time like, oh my God, that's all in his head. Look at him go. That was mighty impressive. And look, Ben, you've dropped many a bomb on us, but it's not a John Knowledge Bomb because your name's not. If I had a Ben Knowledge Bomb drop to play, I would totally play that for you. But yeah, that was mighty impressive, John. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, a good chunk of that knowledge came from a book by Walter Isaacson called The Innovators.
Okay, cool.
And what's cool about that book was it's not centered around just one person. Like, it's basically the history of computers, but it's not talking about, you know, it's just Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. Like, it's talking about groups of people that innovated. So it's not,
Cool.
It's never been just one person, you know, that did anything. And so it's actually a really, like, there's a lot of talk in there about the Fairchild stuff, which is why I knew about Fairchild and everything. So if you get a chance, I would suggest reading it.
Great suggestion, man. And you know, again, just the idea that history in general is being told accurately now, or at least more accurately, where instead of the one person getting the credit. But dude, great stuff all around. John, you won that episode. You went 3 for 5, I believe, and I went 2 for 5, I think. But Ben, man, you knocked it out of the park. And I already know, not only because you said it, but I can sense it, that you have so much more in there willing to give. And so we for sure would love to have you back on and maybe choose a more niche topic, so we can really get you to dive in for us.
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe we're making a mistake right now by bringing. We're like, okay, now it's his podcast, and we just lost.
Well,
it to him.
I mean, it maybe Ben, I earned my nerd cred for you. So if you need us on your podcast, we'll join
yeah.
you too.
Yeah, please. If you ever need a guest, we're happy to do it. Speaking of which, let's let you quickly plug. You've got where can people follow you? Social media. Where can they listen to you?
All right. Well, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm actually pretty active on both at BenMagnet27. You can also listen to my shows Fake Nerd Podcast and Basement Arcade Pause Menu on Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you can listen to your favorite podcasts. You can listen to them. Basement Arcade Pause Menu has its own feed, so if you want to listen to just Basement Arcade, just look up Basement Arcade Pause Menu. You can find it. But the best part is, we have a website, fakenerdpodcast.com, is
Nice.
essentially our central hub forever. It's like the hub of Disneyland. You go there and you can pick which direction you want to go. And we have links to so many things on our website, as well as our YouTube channel as well. So
Cool.
check out Fake Nerd Podcast on YouTube. Go to fakenerdpodcast.com. That if you want anything to do with Fake Nerds, that's where you go.
Well, you've
Cool.
got at least 2 supporters of Fake Nerd Podcast and all the things that you do, Ben. You've really impressed us, and and clearly proven that you're very knowledgeable. So I would highly encourage anybody to go check out the various things Ben Magnet is working on. And yeah, man, thanks so much for being on. And John, you got anything for us?
No, I think we're good.
Cool, man. Ben, it's been a pleasure, dude. Thank you for existing
Yes.
and for having your last name. It's been a joy to have you.
This has been an absolute blast, and I think I know how to narrow it down next time I show up. So.
The gears are already turning, baby. All right.
The gears have been turning. Are you kidding me?
They haven't stopped turning.
No, when you called me and you asked me, it's like, so we actually make our guests do the work and you make a quiz? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's my fingers crossed hope every time I go to a guest. We're the only podcast that makes the guests do the work, and Ben is like, let me do more work. Let me do more.
Dude, it was a great excuse for me to try and crack open a bunch of these books, just like furiously flip through them and go, what can I ask them?
Awesome. You did a great job, and
Yes.
and we will gladly have you flip through some more books and have you back. So be on the lookout for the return of Ben Magnet. Well, that's what we'll call the episode. But until then, Ben, thanks so much again, man, and we'll see all you loggers next week.
Yep. See ya.
It's been a blast. Thank you.